So you're in the Milwaukee area. Come across Bill Miller.
Oh yeah. Uh, and this would have been around 1960
Yeah.
because at that time Jim Barnett had a territory out of Indianapolis, Indiana, and we used to work Milwaukee, which was one of the furthest reaches. We didn't work Chicago. We worked Detroit, and all of Indiana, Louisville, Cincinnati, Ohio, and it was a great little territory. Koniski, Schneider, Blanchard, the Sheik, Yukon Eric. I mean, just Bill Miller. I'd fly out to Omaha and out there, and I mean, it was just a great little territory that Barnett had put together, and he was one of the true innovators of our profession. He really was, who transitioned it from what it was then on into what it was to become, like, say, in the 60s and 70s.
Memories of working Bill Miller.
Superb, excellent for a huge man as big as he was, and of course with his amateur background. I mean, the guy could do it, and but just a very professional man. Always enjoyed being in his company and having the pleasure of working with him. Yeah.
I guess in around the same time Killer Kowalski came in.
He did, but I never had much to do with him. But I knew Killer from when I was around 12 years old. I don't know how much older Killer is than I am, maybe about 5 years. But he must have been like he was maybe like 20 or something. He came to St. Louis, Missouri. I'm not sure what it was, but he was the first 6'6" man that when he took his robe off and just held it back, and as he turned real slow in the arena, the wave was real slow, but it was a murmur. Oh, you could just hear it. And plus, a nip up and a drop kick from a 300-pound, 6'6" man was unique back then.
Dick the Bruiser.
Dick the Bruiser, God love him. He was just a hard-working, superb worker, and really smooth, and really an excellent talent, and truly, I don't know if you guys even know this, but a true Damon Runyon personality. I don't know if you know who Damon Runyon is.
Mm-mm.
He was a guy that always loved writing about people's, I guess, in the 40s and 50s and 60s, who were off-the-wall personalities. And the Bruiser, God bless him, he would fall into that category. Dick was almost like, was on a 24/7 ego trip. I mean, there wasn't anything he didn't do. If you ever get a chance to interview Bobby Heenan, maybe you already have.
Mm.
But get him to talk to you about the Bruiser. Bruiser, he had to be extreme. It didn't matter whether it was a convertible, boat, life, clothes, business, whatever it was. He had to take it out to the limit, and did it with a certain panache, as they say. Not that professional wrestlers have panache. I'm not even sure I'm using the word correctly. But, I mean, he was truly a bizarre individual, the way he lived personally in his life. He had like a bed that was made like it was supposed to have been like a 10-foot by 10-foot bed. And they put it into the house and then put the wall up. So whatever.
Freddie Blassie.
Freddie Blassie was just from St. Louis, Missouri originally. And I'm presently reading his book, so I'm lots of names that come back to me even too,
What's your fondest memory of him?
I never was around Freddie that much.
Mm-hmm.
It just worked out that way that whatever territories my dad was in, necessarily Freddie wasn't there. And when Freddie had his big run in California, I was, where was I? I was someplace
Hawaii.
else. Hawaii, Japan, and so, and I was up in Oregon and different places, and so I was not around him as much as a lot of as I would necessarily have liked to have been, but just wasn't.
Late 1960s, you go back to Southern California. I think this is where you start your tagging with different people. Almost your tag team career. I think you work with Blears and Carpentier.
Yeah, a little bit. L.A. was home for me. That's where I started. So there was a tendency, and in 1960, I got married in 57 to my first wife, and there's only two. Uh, so, so I would go back there every once in a while. Come in. And yes, um, you. The nature of the beast at that time was you went to different territories, and you hoped to get over in that territory to such an extent that you become main event status and main event week in, week out, month in, month out, year in, year out.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that most territories always feared was they didn't like you to buy a home. Buying a home made you a homesteader, and they hated this. And because then they felt they had an obligation to keep you booked, and you got a family, and you got to keep working, and they may have lost their thrill and excitement for you. So consequently, now what do they do? So, and if you did buy a home, if you happen to be in a territory 2 or 3 years, you never said anything about it. You kind of kept it quote kayfabe, and from the office, and so that was the nature of the beast. It's like when I wound up buying a townhome after I'd been in Minnesota for about 4 years, but never said a word. Then I wound up building a house back in 81 after I'd been there for 10 years. And I remember building it where I was building it, and somebody said it was out on the lake, and Greg Gagne said to me, he said, "Gee, Nick," he said, "you should build it out on the lake." He said, "Because you enjoy boating and everything," which I did, the whole thing. And he says, "God," he said, "you got to build it." He said, "This is your home." I said, "No, this is your home." I said, "If I don't see eye to eye with the office tomorrow," I said, "I'm history." And I knew right where that statement was going to go. So you learn how to play the ploy, both ends as best you can, So.
The next territory you went to was Texas in 1961.
Yeah, then that was a journey that I started on that I totally detested because I had my second daughter who was just born, and we headed for Texas. Got to Texas. That's when I was talking about Pedro Martinez. Jim Barnett called me and he says, "Pedro Martinez is looking for a baby face, and I suggested you, and blah, blah, blah." So I'm in Texas maybe 6 weeks, and I go to give them my notice, and I tell them I got an opportunity up in Buffalo, New York, and they were very gracious, and they says, "Not a problem, go ahead. I mean, if you think you got a chance to make some money." So in 6 weeks after being there, I packed my family up, the trailer behind the car, and there was a hurricane that came into Texas the week I left that followed my trip all the way from Texas to Buffalo, New York. And to where, it just poured rain for like 5 or 6 or 7 days steady. I get to Buffalo, New York, and so Pedro Martinez says, "Can I change your name?" I said, "You can call me asshole if you make me money." I says, I'm not on a popularity trip here. I said, "I'm just eager to make a buck." And so I got there, and Pedro Martinez was one of the most arrogant, condescending, big man, around 6'6", and he always kind of leaned back and he looked down over his chest, and he was always smoking a big cigar, and it was looking like he always had a look on his face like he was of disapproval of everything that was around him. And one of the few men that immediately struck me as, I don't like this guy. And so and he wanted to change my name, so he changed my name. And I forgot even what the hell it was. And in the meantime, I ran into Sam Maneker, who was someone who was doing a number of TVs, different places, had worked with him, with Barnett in Indianapolis before that. And so finally, I go ahead and I gave this guy my notice. I couldn't have been there a month, and I gave him my notice. And then I drugged my family, if you can picture this, Los Angeles to Houston, Houston to Buffalo, New York, Buffalo, New York to Calgary, Canada. And I got to Calgary, Canada, and I'm working for Stu Hart. And you got to picture, you're hauling a wife and two little children by car all around these places, loading up this trailer, this whole thing. Dues paid. And so I get to Calgary, and I rent a house up there. And I'm in Calgary 2 months, 3 months. 3 months was all the tougher I was, and it was wintertime, and I left there, and I had a chance to go to Hawaii, which became very effective in my life, caused a lot of pluses.